Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea. And on a Friday, I'll tell you the distribution. For me, it's mostly through Apple. There's many other ways to get a podcast from Bloomberg Podcast. But just 2 points here as we ramp up a new digital reality for everything I'm doing in economics, finance, investment, and international relations. The first thing is, out on YouTube, subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts. That's really going to be the platform forward 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, the conduit, the fold-in of all the work that Bloomberg does every day that ends up in some form of audio file and podcast. And the other is that I'm very much focused on Apple Podcasts. It's a great, great distribution system, and we're just thrilled with what our team is doing there. This is an incredibly nuanced Friday. I can't say enough about almost what I'd call micro-tensions on the Bloomberg screen, the Launchpad screen, between equities, bonds, currencies, commodities. And that micro-tension on an inflation basis is this raging debate about a stable inflation, some saying even higher inflation, many remodeling in a new disinflation to come. Jim Bianco has seized the high ground here. He's out of Chicago in Bianco Research. 18 months ago, he was a lonely voice saying, don't be so certain about disinflation. We get an update from Jim Bianco.
If you go to what the economists call the base effect, the numbers from last year were very low, and we're going to stay there. And that's going to be problematic for a Fed that is looking for confidence to cut rates.
Right.
They're going to continue to see sticky inflation. I think the probability is above zero that we're going to have a rate increase. But I don't think it's quite at that 50% level that you would expect one. But we are probably closer to that than a cut right now. The data is just not there for a cut. I mean, one payroll report that came in below expectations, it was still 176,000 jobs. And that's nothing that you would look at and say, this economy needs more stimulus.
Who to read this weekend to dovetail off Jim Bianco? Without question, Lindsay Pieggs at Stifel, also out in the Midwest, is adamant about the rationalizing, I should say, of a rate increase. I can't say enough how lonely Bianco and Piegza are versus the zeitgeist of a new disinflation off of, declining real estate prices and this, that, and the other thing. Taylor Swift tickets in Paris, they're not declining. They're not part of the disinflationary trend. I want to take some time here. I can't say enough about how you have a theory or a belief and there's a jump condition change. There's a whole thing called economic epistemology that talks about this. George Soros has been very eloquent on it out of Popper at LSE in the early 50s and onward and forward. I don't want to go into that right now, but you can have a jump condition in thought. Decades ago, there was a company called Stern Stewart in a one-volume book on economic value added that it didn't so much change the dialogue, but began a dialogue over the silliness of what business media does every day, which earnings, what are revenues going to do, what's gross margin, oh my God, EBITDA, I can't believe it. And basically what EVA said, economic value added, was it's all hot air. You need to look at the net operating profits after taxes, figure out your own individual capital analysis and capital deployed and capital allocation of a company. And there's a number of different ratios here. And it's worth the subscription to a Bloomberg terminal to go, say, Apple, AAPL, equity, WACC. The weighted average cost of capital screen, WACC of the Bloomberg, is literally worth why you buy a Bloomberg. It's just that good. And the answer is this is a whole science unto its own. And Craig Sterling was at the advent of this with EVA Dimensions, working at Credit Suisse, and now at Monday. This is one of the highlights of what we've been doing on Single Best Idea. Craig Sterling here on if you don't allocate capital in a good and constructive way, you are toast.
Most companies are being run very capital efficient. Investors are not letting them do things in the past that may have destroyed returns on capital and hurt future growth and ultimately their share price. Companies are being well run, not all, but the ones that aren't, we see activists come in and I think you're seeing these companies well run. And in analog semis, this is an industry that is generally well run. It's gotten more concentrated in recent decade or so.
Right.
So you've got the winners that have done a good job. And you look at a company or an industry like chemicals or energy, which have not been great stewards of capital over time, but these companies are competing way more rationally, not spending just to spend and grow. And the investors are going to start rewarding this.
Just a superb conversation, just what we love to do. We've had a phenomenal week at Bloomberg Surveillance. I don't even know where to begin to describe on the conversations, because one of the highlights was Jess Menton with her definitive analysis of Sweetgreen. She is the chief surveillance salad correspondent. I had no idea you could pay $18 for an 1,100 calorie salad with a name I can't pronounce, but the kids are lined up. Eric and the rest, they're all lined up out the door, 15 feet deep for a Sweetgreen salad. That's my goal this weekend. I'm going to try to take a Sweetgreen salad. We'll see if I get in the door and am able to make the order. Paul Sweeney says you need to take a course to make an order. From New York, we're on Apple CarPlay. We're on Android Play as well. On YouTube, subscribe Bloomberg Podcast. Search Bloomberg Podcast. We're there with a 2-hour, 56-minute replay. You'll see that out. And on Apple, this is Single Best Idea.